enduring understandings for those themes, the next step is to design a plan to connect those themes to students at the beginning of the course. This is why Unit 1 is so critical. This would be hard just starting out because there wasn't a good introduction. She just kind of jumped right in. This might have been, um, part two for another video. So I just noticed at the very beginning she just started really quickly. There wasn't a whole lot of introduction and picking up your hands and figuring out where to place things and what exactly she's talking about could be a challenge. Most teachers have asked their students at one time or another if they remember discussing some previous topic, and many students don't remember. The idea behind Unit 1 in all social studies courses is to engage students' prior understandings with the themes that will be discussed throughout the course. This means creating a first unit that teaches the terminology in the enduring understandings and allows students to make connections in their own lives or communities. The traditional practice of handing out vocabulary lists and reading the first chapter on day 1 needs to be reconsidered. Instead, engage in a dialogue with the students and do some activities where students have the opportunity to demonstrate what they already understand about the connecting themes. When Unit 1 is complete, students should understand all components of the enduring understandings, give personal examples of each of the ones you intend to use, and connect a piece of content to one or more of the enduring understandings. Let's see what this looks like in practice.
Who plans on going to college? Right, Jasmine? Why?
Because I think I'll be more successful if I have a college education.
Okay. You think you make more money?
Yes.
Maybe get a better job?
Yes.
So it'd be good for you.
So they're now switching from the one person talking to the example of the teacher in the classroom, the students. This would be very hard because there's a lot of quick question and answering from the teacher and the student, being able to identify what student is talking, and just like the classroom dynamic could be a challenge. Just the pace, the rapid conversation back and forth.
In long term. Okay. Now, what has the government in the state of Georgia done to help students go to college?
Of course, grants and scholarships.
You know one by name by chance?
Hope scholarship.
Hope Scholarship. And what is the Hope Scholarship?
It's a scholarship given to, I think it's just Georgia kids who maintain a certain grade point average or numeric average.
And they pay for you to go to college, right? Now, why would the government want you to go to college?
Maybe to push you to work harder at school.
And when you graduate from college, you are better prepared for the workforce, right?
Yes.
Right. Now, you mentioned something about the GPA. Why would the government have a GPA component to the Hope Scholarship? Why would they want you to keep your GPA at a certain level?
Maybe so more people would push to have a higher GPA and have a better chance of getting into better school.
Right. Stephen, you wanted to comment on that?
I was just going to say that the government may want you to have the GPA so that they don't spend their money or waste their money on people that they know aren't going to finish and aren't going to pursue their goal.
Right. So what's the belief here? What's the belief from government? They believe if we spend money on education, then
More people, I believe that they think that if they spend more money on education, more students will pursue further education and try to be more successful in life.
good. Guess you had a comment?
Well, like Steven was saying, I was saying maybe like if the government spend money on students who want to learn, maybe the ones who don't want to learn or change their thought about it, and they'll want to learn just like everybody else, and then the government will see that they can do this all statewide, just not in one state or two states or three.
Good. So what we take from this then is the fact that you want to go to college because you think it'll better you in the future. So that's a belief you have, right? I believe that if I go to college, I'll get a better job, I'll make more money in the future. And you think that could actually lead to other students wanting the same thing, right? So here we have the government making a decision. They give away a lot of money, right? College is expensive. So the government's going to give away a lot of money based on the belief, right? So it's an economic decision based on a belief. It's better, people who want to go to college should be a better therefore we are going to spend money on it. Yes, dear.
As well as the belief, wouldn't it be an idea if they did do it?
Belief and ideal, and I'm going to use the term belief and ideal as kind of good. Who in here has ever done some kind of volunteer work? Caitlin, what kind of volunteer? What group were you working with when you volunteered?
Usually elementary school age.
Okay. Well, who was doing the volunteering? Was it a church group? Was it a school group?
In my school group, the Beta Club.
The Beta Club. You said you were helping elementary school?
Yes.
What were you doing?
We usually play learning games or computer games, just reading and stuff.
Why that group?
They're just easier to get along with and they want to learn more.
What's the importance of helping them learn and helping them with education?
It's usually classes like after school with the kids that struggle during the school.
Okay, so what's the belief behind that? If you help them when they're struggling with learning, what's that going to do for them in the future?
Become better and just want to learn more and struggle as much.
And how does that help?
It helps them be able to get to colleges and just go farther.
How much time do you spend volunteering?
Well, we have to have 25 hours a year, and it's just usually a couple hours at a time.
Now that 25 hours you could use doing something else?
Yes.
But you choose to volunteer, right? So you're making a decision in this case. In this case, you're taking a time, so you're making a social decision based on belief that you need to help elementary kids with their reading, right? Does that make sense to everybody else? Has anybody ever changed a decision or a belief after talking to somebody, after getting advice from somebody? Nicole, what kind of situation were you in?
Well, I was gonna buy a shirt, and my mom told me it was too expensive, so I ended up not getting the shirt. But then later I found it at a different store for a cheaper price.
Okay. So were you mad originally that you couldn't buy the shirt?
Very.
Because you didn't think you would get it again, right? But it turned out it would have been a mistake to buy the shirt, right? Right. Now, why did you give your mom advice so much weight? Why did that matter to you?
Well, she kind of made me.
She kind of made you, so she exerted force, right? And that happens sometimes in government. We have people who exert force on others just because they think they know better. It turns out in this case she was right.
Yes.
Is she always?
Well, no.
It's okay. Say no. All right. Anybody else have any comments on that? All right.
One thing to say, I noticed in my educational interpreting class that engaging in the students and knowing when a question is being asked is you're supposed to do a hand wave or do some type of gesture to let them know that a question is being asked and an answer is being requested. So for this interpretation, even though I don't know, um, since this is kind of like a teaching, um, the word that I'm looking for is not coming to mind, but like seminar kind of thing, I would still use the hand wave and really like put myself like I was the educational interpreter for this classroom and there was a deaf student and when the teacher was asking for questions, wave my hand, point to the student, sign their name like Kayla, and point to my mouth saying that she's saying something and sign what she's saying. I would have to role shift between the teacher and the student so that it's very clear that the teacher is talking and then the student's talking and identifying like the teacher is always going to be on my right side and then all the students I'll make sure I identify which one will be on my left side just so that it's very clear.
So what we had then, you had somebody with more experience shopping, right? Say your mom has more experience shopping than you do, giving you advice on the shopping tip, and it turned out to be the correct advice. What you're going to see in government is that that happens a lot. We have government decisions that are made based on previous government decisions or prior documents that were written long before our government was around that actually have turned out to be correct. And sometimes we try to do things in government that don't work out so well. For example, we're going to talk about something later on in the course called the Articles of Confederation and how we tried to do it on our own. We tried to go out and buy that shirt. We thought we could do it. We thought we were being really smart. But in the end, it turned out it wasn't really the best way to do it. And what we had to do was go back and get advice from people who had structured governments long before we had. Has anybody ever tried to change something in school, like a pep rally or location or price of prom tickets? Stephen?
Yes, I actually tried to get my schedule changed because I wasn't satisfied with the classes they did schedule.
how did you go about doing that?
Well, at first, I went down to the council's office myself to try and see if I could get it changed, but they said you had to sign up on on the login sheet, and they would call you down individually. And they would take it too long, and by that time, school was already progressing. So therefore, I ended up telling my mother about it, and she actually came up here to help me get it changed.
Now, why did you feel like your schedule needed to be changed in the first place?
Well, because I wasn't satisfied with the class or the teacher that that was teaching, and I didn't feel that I would actually learn the material that I need to be taught. Needed to be taught in the big class.
Okay. Let me go back a second. You said your mom actually eventually had to get involved, right? Now, why did you feel that was a necessary step to take?
Well, because I felt that the counselors would listen to my voice, so that I felt that they would listen to my parents' voice, my mother's voice.
Why would they give your mother more weight or more credit than they would give you?
Well, because she's actually an adult too. And adults usually listen to adults more than they would listen to children.
Okay, that's perfect. So let's look at this. In this case, the decision was to what? What was your decision?
To change my schedule.
Change your schedule. There's actually two kind of decisions involved here. Right? They decided to get mom involved. Just say mom. Now, what was the belief for causing you to want to get your schedule changed?
That I wouldn't mind the material that was being taught in class.
Wouldn't learn as much. Hell. And what was your belief? What was your idea? What were you thinking when you decided to get mom involved?
That they would actually listen to what she had to say instead of just how they weren't listening to me.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment?
Since the students are giving response and the teacher's writing on the board, I feel like I would still continue my pace that I'm at interpreting. The deaf student should be able to look up and see what the teacher is writing while also seeing what I'm signing, since there are pauses in between there. So, which sometimes that could be a concern if the teacher is just talking and writing away and conversations are going on. But at this point, student responds, teacher writes, teacher says something. There's enough lag time or processing time um, to allow the deaf person to see what's going on.
Right. Now, this is absolutely perfect because when we talk about government, especially when we talk about interest groups, have you ever heard that term interest group? When we talk about interest groups later on this year, this is what interest groups are all about. It's hard sometimes for a legislator or for a senator or a representative to listen to just me or to just you. They have a lot of people they represent. But if we can get an interest group involved, in this case your mom represents an interest group, right? They will listen to that group because it's a louder voice, right? It's a more legitimate voice. Interest groups have time and money. They can research. They know the issues. So when an interest group goes to a legislator and they say we want this particular bill passed, they're much more likely to do it. Did your schedule change after your mom got involved? Did, but not before then, right? It's the same thing. We have this belief. In this case, your belief was that, well, the administrator, the counselor will listen more to an adult than just me. We can change that around a little bit, and there's a belief in government that legislators will listen more to a large group of people than to just an individual. Does that make sense? So we have beliefs affecting our decisions. I decided to get mom involved because I thought they listened to her more. Same thing with the scheduling change. I had this belief that I wouldn't learn as much, or you had this belief in this case. I'm not going to learn as much. It's not going to be beneficial for me. Policy needs to be changed. So we need to make some changes. Our beliefs affect our decisions. Start to see this? Start to click for you? Good. Now that we've looked at beliefs and ideals on a personal level, and we talked about some of the decisions you guys have made, what I want to do now is take that and make it a little bit bigger, make it a bit broader, something we can use in government as a whole course. So if you would, open up your notebooks, and on that first page, you'll see a chart that looks very similar to the one on the board. And it's got our 5 themes on it, 5 connecting themes that I told you about earlier. And there's only 5 things you really have to focus on in this course, because everything I teach you is going to be part of all this stuff. But it's not enough just to say beliefs and ideals. There's obviously something I want you to understand about beliefs and ideals, right? So what that's going to be called is an enduring understanding. Enduring means long term, and that's a long time. And understanding is what I want you to understand. So that's what we're going to write here. What is it about beliefs and ideals
Okay, so when the teacher was talking and voicing the students were writing, um, I could either make the decision to sign what the teacher is saying, or I could say the teacher is writing on the board, um, like look up there and then write what he's saying, or I could do both where I sign it, student can either look at me and write or look up at the board and write. Um, but I would things would have to be modified um, for the deaf student just because they can't watch me sign and write at the same time. So my decision that I would do is I would sign what the teacher is saying, and if the student missed something, they can always look up at the board and see what the teacher wrote.
Beliefs and ideals of a society, what they think to be true, like Nicole said earlier, they believe is true. Effect or influence their social decisions, their economic decisions, their political decisions. Which groups do we volunteer to help is based on who we think needs the help, right? Whether or not we go to college, or whether or not we want to go to college, is based on how much value we place on them, right? When we decide not to buy a shirt or to change something we've already worked on, it's based on a belief we have that somebody has better advice, somebody has better. Does that make sense? Beliefs and ideals of society influence social, economic, and political decisions. That's going to keep coming up throughout the whole.
Here, Mr. Cannon was connecting the themes, in this case beliefs and ideals, with things students were familiar with. This is critical to conceptual teaching. For students to really use the themes, they need to realize that they already know and understand quite a bit about these themes, and the teacher is simply expanding on them. If you're lucky enough to get students who are acclimated to the themes and adept at using them, then you can go deeper into their meanings. This is why we have encouraged systems